I think if they're going to do sex education, it should start around 15 years old. 15 years old, that's when hormones are raging. That's when you start to notice boys a little bit more. And I think that's an appropriate time to start talking sex education in the schools. And 18 should continue to be the age for consent.
All right. Thank you, Madam Regina. They're saying it should start at home. Parents should be the first teachers to their children with regards to sex education. And moving from Virginia, we go all the way across the world, literally to Perth, Australia. Madam Achan, the mic and the floor is yours.
Reggie, can everybody hear me? Hello?
We can all hear you.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so I'm gonna steer this leadership a little bit left. So my job, I'm a sonographer, so I do ultrasounds and I do x-rays as well. So obviously I'm exposed to a lot of patients that are of different ages. I've got older women coming in. I've also got younger women coming in. You would notice that the people that do come in, the young kids that are pregnant, for example, if you're gonna have to do an invasive scan on them, it's easier for them to give you consent because they know what you're doing. They've obviously been having sex and whatnot. However, these kids, sorry guys, I'm finding this a bit difficult to get across.
Take your time and don't worry, we are here. This is your show and the floor is yours.
Okay. So I feel obviously when we start educating our kids in sex, it has to start off at home initially, right? And then also the school, with the education system, they also give a contribution. My son, for example, is in year 6 this year. The school sends you information that, this is what we're going to be doing at school. If you're interested, we can give you some information. We can give you some books. You can also talk to your kids about this. If you're not comfortable with it, you don't have to. These kids are obviously developing a lot quicker these days than the rates, that we did. Like Regina was saying, maybe they should start at about 15. That's when boys start noticing girls. I agree that was the case in our years, but kids these days, you don't see a 15-year-old who's, not already wearing a miniskirt. 12-year-olds wear makeup. They wear earrings. Obviously, they've been exposed to these things a lot earlier. Periods even start a lot earlier than they used to in our days. I think most girls in our years, it was probably 14, 15 when periods started. Girls these days start as young as 9. So if they're mature enough to know that this is what's happening to their bodies and they've changed and they're starting to wear makeup, they're starting to wear miniskirts, they're starting to notice boys, yes, we should give them access to these things. They should, I'm not saying they should be able to make every decision for themselves, like treatment to surgery or things like that. But if it's in terms of contraception, if they know what they're doing, they should be given access to it. So we should also be able to teach our kids these things from a young age. There's no point in shielding from these things because you're going to be exposed to it one way or another.
All right. Thank you there, Madam
Achan.
Thought. And Madam Achan is saying in a nutshell that children are exposed and maturing at a much faster rate these days, and there would be no point in trying to avoid the conversation because these things are happening. So instead of shying away from the conversation, let's have the conversations with our children as well as empower them to be able to make more informed decisions. DJ Sugar, your contributions, my guy?
How's it, man? This is a very difficult conversation to have because obviously, yes, children, we need to remember these are 12-year-old children, right? I've worked in a school with 2-year-olds and up to 12 years, up to 18, right? Let's not forget that these are children. I think that's one of the things that we forget, that we are dealing with children. And let's not destroy the innocence that these kids carry, okay? Once, there's a certain thing. For me, I feel like the moment you start educating kids on, yes, let's educate them about sex, and what happens, what are the consequences, all of those things. They need to know that, right? But this whole contraceptive part and the whole where consent without their parents, for me, that's where the problem is. Because remember, this child is 12. They are not mature to actually make a decision, a proper decision to actually have sex. You know what I'm saying? It's more like if I go to a 12-year-old asking for sex, right? Automatically, I'm more mature than them. They're not mature enough. These kids are not mature enough. Let's have the conversation, yes, but the consent, to leave them with the consent, I don't think they need to have that. But let's have that conversation, yes, starting from home. I believe that conversation needs to start from home. And it also needs to go to school, right? It needs to go to school where your teachers are having this conversation with the children. It's more like a community thing. It's more like a community thing. It says, there's that saying that says, it takes a village to raise a child. But if we now start passing these boundaries where there are these boundaries that we need to keep. The child needs to be a child, right? The child needs to experience childhood. Let the child experience childhood, because it can be traumatic in the end. That's what for me, consent, for me, I would say no. Right? Let's have the conversation, but the consent, let's let it go. Let's leave that for a later time, like 15, 16, later on, where the child now understands. Let's expose children to the things that are right, and not this new thing that the government is trying to do.
All right, DJ Sugar there. Thank you for the contribution. And for those of you who are just tuning into After 5 Radio, thank you for choosing After 5 Radio, and welcome aboard the leadership, where we are having presently a discussion on the pros and cons, and indeed a precursor to the discussion and live webinar that shall be hosted tomorrow by the government of Zimbabwe via its parliament, via Zoom, to discuss the prospect of amending the Health Act of 2018 in order to include a clause that allows children as young as 12 years of age to have access to contraceptives without the consent of their parents. And joining me here via virtual conference, I have Madame Regina, who's tuned in from the United States of America. I also have Madame Achan, who is coming in from Perth, Australia. You were just hearing there DJ Sugar from Gweru here in Zimbabwe. And just joining us now is Madame Nicole, who is also in the United States of America. Madame Nicole, if you can hear me, a very good morning to you, and the floor is yours. You have a minute to just sum up your thoughts on the issue so that we can open up the discussion and just, have a to and fro.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me. It's morning time and the commute to school today. My thought as I take my daughter to school is, we need to protect our children. It's important that as parents can and make sure my laws, right? Every nation has a set of laws. Every nation has things we have to abide by before we can drive, before we can do certain things.
True.
But as parents, how are we conducting ourselves in our household? Or are we helping to educate them that as they make certain decisions, there's consequences, right?
Yes.
So before this becomes a decision, or as it becomes a decision, can we also focus on our parents to help educate these children? Because Zimbabwe is also facing a different set of circumstances, some of them driven by situations at home, some of them driven by situations at school and in their environments. But at the end of the day, it's the parents' responsibility to protect their children.
Right. Thank you very much, Madame Nicole, for that contribution. That is Madame Nicole coming in from the United States. So for those of you who are just logging into this conversation, welcome aboard the leadership, and thank you for choosing After 5 Radio. You are here with us as we are having a live discussion with a panel of parents, of guardians, of professionals in the healthcare sector who are giving us their views and their take on the proposal by the government of Zimbabwe via its parliament to have a discussion that will culminate in whether or not we shall have a law that will give access to children as young as 12 years of age, access to contraceptives. So we just heard from Madame Regina in the United States, who says it is the responsibility of parents, first and foremost, to ensure that they are the ones who educate their children and give them age-relevant knowledge and exposure, as well as protecting them by ensuring that they are not allowed and given access to make decisions for whose consequences they are not yet prepared to handle. From there, we went on to Madame Achan in Perth, Australia, who says, as a healthcare professional who works every given day on the ground with people who are in these situations, it would be necessary to allow these people, and in this case, these people we're talking about are children, to allow them to get this access, but to a limited degree. Because if there has to be a procedure and anything that has to save their lives, essentially, they can understand the gravitas of that situation and should be given a minimal and indeed limited exposure. And then DJ Sugar, coming in from the City of Progress, says, look, we need to keep circumspect of the fact that children are still children. And it is our responsibility as a society of adults to ensure that we do not give them the unnecessary burden of assuming that they are ready to handle certain decisions that they are not, simply because we assume they are mature or we know that they are exposed. Let us keep remembering that children are still children, and it is the responsibility of adults to ensure that we take care of them. And those are the same sentiments being shared by Madame Nicole as well out of the United States. And coming to the contributions that have come via chat, DJ Samantha Clare, who is in Gaborone, Botswana, says that a 12-year-old definitely needs sex education. Things have changed so much now, and the starting age of sex isn't teens anymore, like when we in the 80s and 90s kids were growing up. Wow, that is an interesting contribution. So she says that because children are exposed, they need definitely to be given the platform and to be given the access, because these are real life and death decisions that need to be made. Aish, time flies when we're having fun, and I see that it has now come to the time that we said we're going to end the conversation. But before we do, I think we'll just push it a bit further for the next 5 minutes, so I can just give again my panel the opportunity to give us maybe their closing remarks, and also indeed to then finally substantiate and give us their point of view, their standpoint, and perhaps even an encouragement to the rest of you that are listening, that let's have this conversation going, and let us tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend, and all of us tomorrow then tune into this live webinar. So again, we'll just go in the same order that we did, beginning with Madame Regina in the United States, then we'll go to Madame Achan in Perth, Australia, from which we will head back to Zimbabwe in the City of Progress with DJ Sugar, and finally end with Madame Nicole in the United States once again. So ladies and gentlemen, the floor is yours in that order to just give us your parting shots, as it were. Madame Regina.
Okay, so I just wanted to quickly add on and say that it's not completely about the fact that we should not give sex education to 12-year-olds. And I completely understand that with the effects of like social media and suggestive music that plays out there, things have changed. Times have changed. I completely agree with that. But what I'm saying is that even though times have changed, I believe it's still up to the parents. It's still the parents' responsibility to give their children this kind of talk and this kind of knowledge, not completely just let the government take over and tell your children what it is that they're supposed to do. And also, I don't believe that children at that point should be able to give consent. Yes, they are exposed to sex, but once again, they're still not mature. I just wanted to put that out there. So yes, they should get sex education. Yes. However, parents, let us be the leaders on this one. Let's protect our children.
All right. Thank you there, Madame Regina, with that contribution. 12-year-olds are not yet mature enough to be given the responsibility to make that decision. It is the duty of parents to ensure that their children get informed, and that information should be relevant to their age with regards to this whole area of sexuality. Thank you, Madame Regina. And we move over to Perth, Australia. Madame Achan, your parting shot.
Okay, I understand, and I'm hearing everyone's
Sorry, I think, okay.
Yep, I'm back.
The system has been being funny. They muted you. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm still on the left side of the ship here.
Yes.
I would like to give an example of smoking, for example.
Yes.
There's lots of kids around 12 or even younger who smoke. Every packet of cigarettes usually says no smoking under 18, but you always find kids that smoke, even though it's not supposed to be sold to kids under 18. But you'd find that those kids that have got free access to smoking, to cigarettes, whose parents allow them, a lot of the times they don't end up picking up the habit. So somehow, we do need to also give these children some credit that they can think for themselves. So give them the opportunity, they make the decision whether or not it's for them or not. However, it starts at home with us. We educate our children. I talk to my kid, okay, this is what smoking does, A, B, C, D. If he wants to smoke, eventually he will find a cigarette and he will smoke. If not, then he doesn't. But it's up to us first how we educate our children. That's my take.
Thank you very much. That is Madame Achan there in Perth, Australia, who says it is as much a responsibility for the parents as it is to educate their children, but we also need to allow them the access to make decisions, because even if we try and superimpose our will and desires upon them, they are still human beings who at the end of the day are going to make their own decisions. Thank you, Madame Achande. DJ Sugar seems to have taken a break, so we go back to the United States, and Madame Nicole, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I see both points that these ladies have shared so far. And I'd just like to add on part of it as well, even amongst, I know situations can be different, driven by poverty, driven by kuisa chingwa on the table, some of these things, but also for especially our girl children, we need to remind them that they're beautiful, that they're valuable, that they're so worthy of so much more than they're exposing themselves to. So as they're making these decisions, you talk to them and help them understand, and then let them make their decisions, right? Like Achan said, because we've all been in circumstances where your parents teach you everything you need to, and then you go off to university and do whatever you want to. So as long as you have a good educational route and you're talking to these children with things that are age appropriate, so they know if someone approaches me, this is not okay. I need to tell someone, and I've spoken to mom and dad, and they told me that they are open to this conversation with me if someone makes me uncomfortable. So let's make that door open, because they will do what they want at the end of the day, but let's do our best to keep the conversations open. And just because the law outside says something, but as a household, what do we value? And how are we taking that into the world?
All right. Thank you there, Madame Nicole. And she says everything in moderation. Yes, our children need to be given the leeway to make decisions, but they can only make decisions that are age appropriate. We cannot burden them with making decisions for which they are not ready nor knowledgeable of the consequences thereof. Ladies, thank you very, very, very much for joining me in this discussion here about the leadership. For all our listeners there, we had Madame Regina out of the United States in Northern Virginia. We had Madame Achan coming in from Perth, Australia. And we also had Madame Nicole joining us from the United States as well. And there we had on the line from Zimbabwe, DJ Sugar from the City of Progress. I will have to thank the ladies, and unfortunately, because I'm running out of time, I will have to quickly put them out of of this meeting so I can just get to closing the show. So ladies, thank you so very much for taking the time to come on this discussion here about the leadership. It is much appreciated, and we definitely look forward to having more discussions of this nature as we move forward. And thank you for choosing After 5 Radio, and especially for being such loyalists to the leadership.